Thomas, today we're going to look at some of the tweets from August 11th that we didn't get to, and boy, they're big, aren't they?
Yeah, they are, Betsy. It's the war against it's the InfoWars, and it's the war against the mainstream media, and it is hopping.
Okay, now when we decode these, I don't want you to hold anything back. I want you to really go deep. Our listeners want that from you, okay? So first one is the big story that the fake news media refuses to report is low-life Christopher Steele's many meetings with Deputy AG Bruce Ohr and his beautiful wife Nellie. It was Fusion GPS that hired Steele to write the phony and discredited dossier paid for by Crooked Hillary and the DNC. Do you want me to continue to the next line?
Might as well stop there. It's so
okay.
This is
and remember,
so
folks, if you want to follow along and read the tweets as we're talking about them, look in the description box, click on the link, and I've got all the tweets there.
All right, Betsy, it's an honor to get to attempt to decode the Trump tweets, these Trump bombs, these tweet bombs that are absolutely blowing up the world, changing nations, and regaining America as our original republic was supposed to be.
So I shall say, whoa, Nellie.
Whoa, Nellie. That beautiful Nellie. The beautiful wife, Nellie. Okay, so 100-plus news agencies, newspapers, have now colluded to write articles against Donald Trump saying that he is wrong, saying that the media is the enemy of the state. They're so stupid. They don't know that 100 of them now colluding together convinces everyone that's going to read those newspapers that it's the exact opposite of what they're saying, that Trump is correct, that they are the enemy of the state. Why would the 100 of them all conspire against him if they weren't? Think of that, folks. It's like Avid and ISIS management, the prompting devices for all the mainstream media. So when he says fake news media, it has now grown into including things like Perkins Coie, who was the law firm that Mark Elias worked for the Democratic National Committee. And what are they doing now? Oh, they went out and they tried to literally pay off tons of people to say that Jim Jordan was part of some kind of criminal activity and not turning in some coach down in Ohio State. This is what they do. Perkins Coie, why aren't they being examined by Jeff Sessions? Why is he asleep at the wheel? Perkins Coie spent $12 million working with Russians, Christopher Steele, Fusion GPS, and others against the campaign. These people are liars. They're enemies of the state. They're disinformation media, mainstream media is, and the people that they work with, like Perkins Coie and these opposition research groups, are linked directly to them. This is a conspiracy. These people are committing crimes. They can't get away with it anymore saying opposition research is legal. No, it is not when it involves mainstream media, which are actually under certain types of laws that they must obey, as well as the fact that they're knowingly lying. And so what we have here now is that the war is now open and it's raging. And InfoWars, 5.6 million people the next day joined up for InfoWars. You can still go straight to InfoWars with one of two apps. So really, what is going on here? There is a major war, but we have to be very careful about who we think is on whose side. Now, let's go into the next word, Christopher Steele. Christopher Steele, who Senator Grassley has demanded that the DOJ and the FBI investigate this criminal because there are already 2 lawsuits against him that he's losing terribly. They're Russians who are suing Christopher Steele here in America for his false dossier for defamation of character. Alexei Gubarev and the heads of the Alpha Bank, 3 heads of the Alpha Bank. So what are we working with here? We're working with a 100% cover-up, straight from the top, of course including Horowitz throughout all of this, of course including people like Christopher Steele and his bunk buddy, his very best friend forever and ever and ever, Bruce Ohr. Bruce Ohr, even when he was told to stop dealing with Christopher Steele, and Christopher Steele was fired by the FBI. Now, mind you, the FBI hired Christopher Steele, a foreign agent, a British foreign agent, who was working with the Russians, many Russians, Ukrainians, Estonians, and people from Australia, a bunch of Brits. So they were working with all of them to do what? What was Bruce Ohr doing? It says here that and insinuates, of course, that Fusion GPS helped create the dossier, and that's true, but we have to remember that Bruce Ohr coordinated the DNC giving their parts of their dossier. They had a whole separate dossier. Cody Shearer created an entirely separate dossier. We have Comey. He had his own entire dossier himself that he had created with FBI money investigating Trump. Imagine that. The FBI investigating a candidate running for office during the election. That is illegal. That is the worst thing that can possibly happen.
We need to close the FBI. We need to send these investigative functions back to the states.
Absolutely. And we have to include the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. We need to get rid of all corporate intelligence. Any intelligence that is part of the intelligence community that isn't military, they need to be nixed. Why? Because you have James Clapper proud to say that he sent an informant into Trump's team to help Trump, because Trump didn't know how bad the people he was working with were. He didn't know how bad these Russians were. He didn't know how bad George Papadopoulos and Sam Clovis and these people were that he was working with. What a bunch of nonsense. These were setups. These were frames. They sent in Carter Page. That was a frame. That was an informant. But so was Christopher Steele. So was Stephen Halper and all the people who were supporting them. So what we have here is really the embarrassing reality that Sessions won't step down. Sessions is a career politician.
Well, he is a senior executive service operative. He's there to protect this, what we call Obama's army. He's doing a very good job. Have you seen anybody arrested yet from this group?
He hasn't even looked in the direction of the Democrats. He hasn't allowed Rat Rodenstein or SS Herr Mueller to look at the Democrats and their direct collusion with Russia and their direct corruption and their paying of millions of dollars to foreign agents to corrupt our election. And basically, Mueller, it's a kangaroo court, and it needs to be closed.
But Jeff Sessions is knee-deep in alligators with this Uranium One scandal. Talk a moment, just refresh people who just got here. His role was CFIUS.
Yeah, well, CFIUS has to have the permission of 4 or 5 of the committees that Sessions sits on. So he had to 3 times that I know of vote in favor of Uranium One deal going through. Hello? We're selling Russians our uranium and then letting them use our uranium enrichment facilities?
He was an active senator at that time, and he voted for this. So how could he investigate the very crime that he committed?
He was, in fact, covering it up. The investigation that had gone on for 10 years, he had to have been very well aware of in the committees that he sits on. So these cover-ups that were going on for 10 years by Andrew McCabe that were, in fact, conducted by Robert Mueller, they're still trying to cover their own trail of guilt up. And that's why Andrew McCabe, still the only person in the whole Horowitz report that was even a finger was pointed at that might possibly be an indictment, nothing has happened. And so Trump is saying, why not? Why can't we get, and Judicial Watch is saying, why can't we get not a single one of Andrew McCabe's text messages? Why can't we get them?
Because it's going to show that there was an assassination attempt on Trump, and it's going to catch all of them red-handed. That's my feeling.
Oh, absolutely. The conspiracy is very clear now. The people involved are very clear. It's just a matter of time. But don't expect much to happen between now and the election, because in the last 60 to 90 days before an election, they usually back off of all of their hearings and everything else. So what they use for politicization with these hearings sometimes is just kabuki theater. It's just complete nonsense. But right now, some of them, Jim Jordan, Devin Nunes, Grassley, and others, Meadows, Gates, and the ones who sent the letter to the DOJ basically demanding that they turn over the documents. So finally, they're turning over the documents from the DOJ and the FBI that really aren't going to be looked at this point. So this is stonewalling. This is professional career politicians stonewalling. It's the slow walk to oblivion.
But no, it's also a slow walk, because when we win the midterms and are even stronger in our presence in Washington, the penalties for what these people have done are going to be even more severe.
We certainly can hope, because now people are calling it the treason that it is.
Okay, next tweet is related. Do you believe Nellie worked for Fusion and her husband still works for the Department of, quote, Justice, unquote? I have never seen anything so rigged in my life. Our AG is scared stiff and missing in action. It is all starting to be revealed. Not pretty. IG report soon. Witch hunt.
Now, mind you, Horowitz's IG report's already been turned in. Nothing happened. Jeff Sessions accepted it, and they did nothing. Nothing. Is Andrew McCabe being prosecuted? Is there an indictment? Is anyone being prosecuted? Did Bruce Orr get anything more than a demotion? No. So what's he saying here? He's saying this is the dirtiest thing that has ever happened to a president in U.S. history, and it is true. So Nellie Orr, of course, worked for Fusion. She had previously worked for FBI in the Open Source Works Department. She actually stepped down and will probably go back to the FBI as soon as she's done with her assignment of taking down Trump. So Trump says that, of course, Bruce Orr still works for the Department of Justice. How could that be possible? How could the lies of the FISA court, how could the foreign meddling in our election through Bruce Orr's connection to Christopher Steele and his connections to all the Russians that we've named, that were, of course, Bruce Orr gave a list of Russians that Christopher Steele could use in his fake dossier, and it came from John McCain. That's
who's also missing in action right now.
Well, of course.
And also, the reason that Bruce Orr is still there is because he is senior executive service, and they can't be fired.
Correct. And, Jeff MIA Sessions, the Benedict Arnold of our time, is certainly missing in action. He's scared stiff. Why would Trump say he's scared stiff? He's scared stiff because his SES directors, handlers, won't let him do anything, but also because he is guilty as sin. And when it finally comes out, the truth that he is trying to cover up, he's going to be complicit. He's going to be part of the conspiracy now.
Don't blame it on the handlers of SES. Jeff Sessions is senior executive service, and he actively participated in this Uranium One cover-up.
Yes, but by scared stiff, there would be... when you get placed in one of these positions, you don't really get to do anything unless you came up from the ranks like Christopher Wray.
Well, who's also senior executive service.
Yes, but Christopher Wray knows how to manipulate the system. Jeff Sessions does not know how to manipulate the Department of Justice, and he's turning out to be a complete idiot, missing in action, acts as if he's scared of the very people below him, scared to get caught of his criminality, and Trump has given him an order repeatedly with his tweets, which now are demonstrated to be legal notification. So what has he done? He's ignored them. What is Trump is doing? He's setting up to fire Jeff Sessions the second that the Mueller investigation is over. Will it be over before the election? No, because generally it goes on hold at this point. And it was only meant to obstruct the election. That's what the Mueller investigation was there for. And also, if you believe that QAnon is some right-wing connected conspiracy group with Trump, you're wrong. Trump has nothing to do with them. He is not aligned with them. He is the opposite of that. And anyone who would read these silly posts of QAnon would understand that when they say trust Sessions, okay, are you now going to believe that you can't trust the plan of QAnon? The plan of QAnon said trust Sessions. It said trust Rosenstein. It said trust Horowitz. Trump says don't trust them. He's 1 second away from firing them. So folks who are following QAnon, please compare that to what the real drops are. Trump tweet drops. Those are the truth. Those are the news. You don't have to have somebody in the inside, because we got the guy in the inside. We have the man who is leading this InfoWars and is winning it. And he's doing it in so many ways with the election meddling and the election preparations that are going right now. What are we finding out? That the corruption of the last presidential election was off the charts. So do not think for 1 second that Trump is not winning. He is winning on so many battlefields. It is unbelievable, but he does it behind the scenes. He does it with, as someone has recently pointed out, that we are correct. He does it with U.S. Marshals and the U.S. Treasury Department. And that is who is taking down the criminals right now. And don't be surprised that George Soros is going to have his accounts frozen, and that's the reason he gave every speck of money that he had over to his non-governmental organizations so that he could hide the money. He gave the rest to his son Alexander. So right now, Soros probably has sanctions on him, more than likely, because Trump is no fool.
What do you mean Soros has sanctions on him?
Because of his actions, I assume that when he gave $18 billion, which is every dime he had, into the organizations that then promote his agenda, he did that so that he would have no money to be taken away from him.
Sometimes I get the he's and the she's, and I have to make sure I have them right in my head.
He cleaned out his offshore accounts.
Okay, well now, so let's move along. So Trump has moved out of the White House for a while. He says that there were planned renovations in there, which is good. I hope they gut the whole thing inside and do major renovations and get rid of all of this corrupt CIA and FBI bugs, which I imagine to be in every corner and behind every curtain. But anyway, there's a big renovation going on, so he says. And so he's in Bedminster, New Jersey, at one of his houses. And there he is, and hundreds of bikers showed up. So he's got a picture of the bikers that showed up. But when I looked at that, I was like, he's moved out of Washington for a while. Our Bikers for Trump are there showing their strength and their loud motors. Do I need to make anything more of this than what it is?
Oh, it is exactly what you think it is, Betsy. Those people were there to protect him at the time when the $18 billion in George Soros funds to NGOs, non-government organizations that cause chaos, fascist organizations, are out on the streets in in D.C., trying to create a riot. Now, this is inciting to riot. This is clearly against the law, what is going on. People are being paid to come and to be violent, just like they were paid to come and be violent in Charlottesville, in Berkeley, in many other places. So it's about time that law enforcement takes it into their own hands. But let's remember, of the many people that were arrested from the last riots, every single one of them that we have heard of, and some of them still, since the inauguration, are still in jail awaiting their trial and conviction. So good luck, Antifa. Go on out there with your masks on, with sticks in your hands, ready to kill people. And I hope you get arrested. And like the other 200 of your cohorts that are in jail awaiting trial, the 20 or so that I've heard of got the full sentence, which is 10 years. They need to get the full
sentence, yes, absolutely.
10 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go to jail for 10 years because you don't go on the street to riot and kill people in a mask. That is nothing more than fascism. That's, who do you think you are? National Socialist Party? That's who you're acting like, because Antifa took their flag, took their mottos, and takes their impetus from the Ukrainian Party of Regions. The exact same words, same flag, everything. They are fascists. They are the Nazis who supported Hitler, okay? They're the same exact group. And the fascists in Ukraine were supported by Victoria Nuland. And the first call to Victoria Nuland came from Ukraine. That started the dossier, that started John Brennan and the counterintelligence operation. It is not an investigation. It was never an investigation. It is not a special counsel investigation of Sir Harry Mueller. It is Sir Harry Mueller's counterintelligence operation against a sitting president, also called a coup d'etat. Now, let's go on.
Okay.
Soros paid for all these agitators to come, as we now know. Both sides were paid. The guy on the right, Kessler, the woman on the left, Sarsauer, Rosie, Michael Moore, all of Hollywood. Do you think they're not paid? Do you think they're not paid every time they open their mouth? They are paid because they're part of a guild, and that union tells them and fingers them. Why do you think Danny DeVito only came out now? Because they had to go that far down on the list to finger somebody to say it's your turn to get out there and to tell lies about Trump. So that's what's going on. Whatever happens, it doesn't matter. Trump knew when Admiral Rogers came and told him that John Brennan was wiretapping Trump Towers. He moved out to Bedminster. And it's secure and safe there. And the 200 people who showed up on their Harley Davidsons, by the way, they will be boycotting Harley Davidson, probably burning those bikes and buying the replacement bikes that are even better, made by Americans right here who are going to take the place of Harley Davidson.
Some of them may have been riding those Indian motorcycles. They're pretty cool.
There are a lot of other motorcycles besides Harleys. Anyway, it's a personal army. It's mobile. It's armed, made of patriots and veterans and law enforcement. They are the Minutemen of Trump. Anytime Trump is in danger, they show up. Have you noticed that? One time, 1 million of them showed up, and it wasn't even reported by any of the mainstream media. 1 million bikers showed up to protect Trump, 18 months ago. And it wasn't even reported. All you got to see is a few pictures, and they tried to diminish the amount of people who showed up. These people showed up on their own, obviously, and I don't know how they knew he was going to Bedminster, but he welcomed them there, and he's shaking hands with all of them. There's no patriot. There is no patriot in America that Trump is worried about. But there is probably many, many leftists, many fascists, many Democratic anarchists, many Bernie socialists, many Cortez fascist communists, many Brennan communists who would like to harm Trump. But Trump is not in danger because Trump is protected by people like this and by our prayers.
The next tweet is a quote from Judge Jeanine. Bob Mueller, isn't your whole investigation premised on a fake dossier paid for by Hillary, created by a man who hates Donald Trump, and used to con a FISA court judge? Bob, I really think it's time for you to give up your phony investigation. Close quote. Then Trump adds, no collusion.
And no obstruction, and no crime. Now, Judge Jeanine, it's good, but you need to get a little bit stronger. Phony, yeah, you insinuate here that it's a con job, what they did to the FISA court, and then don't call it a phony investigation. Let's call it a treasonous criminal coup d'etat. Let's say that the con job to the FISA court, every single one who signed those, that would be Yates, Boente, Rosenstein, Comey.
Yeah, but Rosenstein didn't read it.
Oh, that's right. He didn't read it.
He just signed it.
That's what he said.
Right.
And he can't be responsible for it.
No.
That's right. I forgot that. Anyway, he still needs to go to jail for being an idiot and signing something that he didn't read. Then we need to remember that this was never an investigation. It was a counterintelligence operation. It was an illegal election interference. It is a crime. It is a treasonous crime. Now, what we need to remember is that it was much, much more than this just investigation. The investigation continues on what was the entire Trump team being set up, continuously targeted and attacked, being framed, being lied about, being wiretapped, being unmasked, being set up by Russians who were brought in by the State Department under Hillary's direction to try to set up Donald Jr. This is unbelievable when you look into it. Christopher Steele didn't act alone. When you list all the people that we tell you he worked with, we're talking about the fact that we need to end our relationship with Britain. Period. We need to end our relationship with Britain. They have been interfering in our election, and they almost took over America. And we've shown you how Serco, how the SES members give Serco contracts, and Serco has infiltrated all aspects of our government, and that is ran by the Crown's Privy Council. And it's disgusting.
And see, all along they were feeding us this propaganda saying, oh, Britain and the United States, great friends, great friends. Well, and we never looked under the hood. And when we did, we were appalled to find out that the Brits have been running America ever since we thought we won the American Revolution.
I like Judge Jeanine's thing, that created by a man who hates Donald Trump. We need to emphasize the fact that Christopher Steele was a rabid dog foaming at the mouth, an anti-Trumper, a never-Trumper, a person willing to put his entire career, everything online, and go to jail over Trump not being elected.
Yeah, but who does Christopher Steele really answer to?
He doesn't answer to anybody because he's a Brit.
Well, that's the point. He is a Brit.
But he's hired by our government, so therefore he is, in fact, an employee of ours. So at the time that he was employed by the FBI, employed by the State Department, and he's been employed for years and producing these kind of lies and these fake documents on Russia to produce basically Russia-phobia, he would be one of the people who would be right in there with the Atlantic Council.
Well, if Judge Jeanine is so cutting edge, how come she's not talking about Stephen Halper, Strategic Communications Laboratory, Richard Dearlove? Why aren't these people in the Fox News channel talking about the nitty-gritty of how this operation went down?
Well, because they're owned by the same 6 corporations who own all the media. She also says that it was just, Christopher Steele, the man, created by a man. It wasn't created by a man. Christopher Steele hardly wrote any of it. It was created by Alexandra Chalupa, Dmitry Alperovitch, by Nellie Orr, Bruce Orr, James Comey, Victoria Nuland. It was created by Courtney Shearer. It was created by all kinds of information that was given that was false. Natalia Veselnitskaya was one of the Russians that was actually feeding the dossier information. Everyone was feeding that dossier information. Christopher Steele is not a bright character. He never has been. He works in a company of two people. He's kind of a failed Russian agent who really was never anybody. But he can be manipulated after the fact by having a private corporation of intelligence corporation, that can be manipulated by Sir Richard Dearlove, the ex-head of the MI6, the person who was giving him orders before. It can be manipulated by Sir Geoffrey Patty, by Lord Malloch Brown. So Christopher Steele was nothing more than a pathetic little puppet who didn't do a good job, who blew his job, who let it out that he was giving all this information to the media, who let full copies go out to John McCain, who, like an idiot, but the zealot, idiot warmonger that he is, made sure that that dossier got spread around to news agencies that printed the whole thing, which then blew the whole operation, John McCain, because you are not an intelligent person. You get caught every time you go to, say, Turkey and work with Erdogan to create war in Syria. You got caught. We got all your pictures. Then we have you coming out, yelling that what you did is right. So what we're talking about here is this wasn't one man. This wasn't Christopher Steele. And if we listened to Senator Grassley, we would arrest Christopher Steele and bring him here. We would simply arrest him like Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson got arrested for yelling across the street. Okay? Well, this guy, Christopher Steele, was the leader. Well, one of the leaders. He was at least the linchpin, just like Peter Strzok was the linchpin on the government side for America. The anti-American foreign nationals that were against us, he was the linchpin for them. And what he needs to do is be arrested so that he can turn in the other people that we can go to Britain and arrest and bring back here.
Well, they're not going to give him up because he leads straight to the Queen.
And he leads straight to the people who paid him, who are the heads of all these agencies that we've just referred to.
Okay, the next tweet is a little feel-good by a quote from Mike Huckabee, a quote, "Your paycheck is bigger, your pension is stronger," close quote. And then I think this might be a Fox and Friends retweet. I'm not really sure or how this is, but it reads, "Unemployment numbers are better than they have been in 50 years and perhaps ever. Our country is booming like never before. And it will get even better. Many companies moving back to the USA, continuing on, except for Harley-Davidson, maybe. Harley-Davidson owners plan to boycott the company if manufacturing moves overseas. Great. Most other companies are coming in our direction, including Harley competitors. A really bad move. U.S. will soon have a level playing field or better."
With the first tweet, Huckabee's right. It's historic. We're in the best times, and it's getting better day by day. Money in our pocket, tax breaks, you name it. Companies, manufacturing coming back, people coming back and actually paying taxes in America. No more getting to rip the biggest companies in America paying no taxes. Okay, that's what was going on under the Obama criminal days. That needs to stop. So we are at historic levels in all areas practically, and they can't even come up with numbers to compare. Imagine that. Trump, the evil one that people think needs to just be taken out no matter what, has taken us in to the most historically great times that America has seen in modern times, while the mainstream media, 97% of the reporting is negative. Imagine that. Imagine how corrupt they are, that it's the best times and they're saying it's the worst times. Going on to the next one, Harley-Davidson boycott. Yeah, we ought to boycott them completely and then only buy Harley-Davidson knockoff lookalikes that are going to be made here in America, which will probably be even better. And they sold out. They sold out to Thailand. They are not going to win. They are going to lose massively. They are going to be boycotted. There's no doubt about that. And when they are, we need to remember we can boycott Facebook, YouTube, Google, Amazon, Netflix, Hollywood, football, and anything else that gets in the way of the people who don't want to give any respect to the MAGA followers, which is more than the majority of Americans who support Donald Trump and these historically good times. So if you want to fight against the historically good times, get ready for your RICO charges. Get ready for your antitrust charges, your monopoly charges. Get ready for the government contracts to be pulled from you, Amazon.
What about his meeting with Tim Cook the other day?
He was telling him, get in line or else. Period. You can run away like Eric Schmidt, but then you can't come back. And then when you find out you made the wrong choice and you chose like Eric Schmidt and Kissinger and Steve Bannon, they chose China over America, you're going to lose big time, because that is nothing more than believing some kind of propaganda somebody told you.
I would
journalism.
say, for the first time in my life, we have a president who is working for the people of the United States.
And what they don't understand, Trump can knock them all out, not with wars. They always thought, and this is what Bush family thought, that if we're at war, you have a good economy. That isn't true anymore. The economy can stop war. The economy is more powerful than war. That's the reason that we are in a national emergency right now, because Trump declared a national emergency because of these economic situations, because of no borders in the South, and because of the migrant invasion of America through the auspices of left-wing and far right-wing ideas that there should be no immigration laws in America. George Soros open border ideas, which are just not logical. There is nothing true about the concept of open borders.
Thomas,
it's absurd to believe that.
Before we get to the last tweet, tell me a little bit about what you've been reading, what you see, what's going on with Julian Assange.
Julian isn't even going to answer the stupid letter they sent him via Twitter because it's stupid. And he's already told them what he's willing to do, and they won't do it. This is a trick. This is a setup. Look who sent out the letter. The most corrupt committee in D.C., which is the Senate Intelligence Committee. Who sent it out? The people who said they want to hang him. Mark Warner and the group, McCain, and also then
Burr and Feinstein
and the intelligence
Rubio.
agencies, they all said, hang Assange. What do you mean hang Assange? He didn't do anything wrong. He's doing nothing more than what the Washington Post and the New York Times does every single day with not telling who their sources are. But, difference is those fake news agencies always get proven wrong. Julian Assange is yet to be ever proven wrong. Not one single document has ever been proven to be fake. So what's happening with Julian Assange? We have been told by the government, the Organization of American States, that we better follow the rules with Julian. Matter of fact, they specified and clarified them recently, and we signed that agreement. So we must give him asylum. As a matter of fact, we, if Britain won't, need to protect him from the Ecuadorian embassy to the airplane and make sure that that airplane gets to where he wants to go for asylum, which is Ecuador. That's the law, folks. And if Britain doesn't do that, they're breaking international law.
Well, they are already showing their cards by what they tried to do with the United States government in the election. You know?
Look at Tommy Robinson. They wouldn't let that go. They had to put him in jail for a while, make sure that he was abused, make sure that he was humiliated, and his family was terrified, and his followers were all shaken up. But it got the Brits out on the street, which was marvelous that it got the Brits out on the street for something good for once, because they don't seem to notice that they've been taken over, and it's so sad for them. But they got out on the streets, and they think that they won, but they didn't win at all. It wasn't their demonstrations that got Tommy out, and it's not going to be anything that we do here in America as people that is going to get Julian Assange into a secure position. No, Julian Assange has a target on him because he knows and has proof that there was no hacking of the DNC. So Hillary Clinton's new lawsuit against the Russian Federation, the Russian government, the GRU.
The DNC versus the Russian Federation.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen anything more preposterous?
Well,
these people are just crazy.
There were two previous ones from the DNC that were fairly preposterous, but this one is over the edge because it names Trump, it names Joseph Mifsud, it names everybody who wasn't guilty. So if you want to know who was not guilty, they're on that list. And are they going to get anywhere with that? No. All that is another piece of pathetic PR, yellow journalism, because none of those people involved, Podesta, Hillary, they won't answer any questions about the DNC because they're going to be asked embarrassing questions. For instance, why was Stephen Halpern trying to frame George Papadopoulos, saying that Papadopoulos wanted the 33,000 emails, Hillary, when we now are told by Christopher Wray that James Comey always had them? Russians didn't have them. Comey had them. They weren't hacked. They weren't hidden. They weren't deleted. He says he has them all. And now you have lawsuits coming from the DNC saying that they didn't do anything wrong, and specifically saying that Trump, from the beginning, Trump himself told Putin to hack the DNC. That's what her stupid lawsuit says. So Trump just called up, hey, Vlad, hey, can you hack the DNC? And I want you to get all the compromising emails, 10,000 of them, of Hillary and Podesta. And I want you to go ahead and let's see, let's make up a guy. Guccifer 2.0, we'll say he did it, or it doesn't matter. Just as long as they can find out that you did it. Okay, Vlad? That's all that matters. Okay, thanks, bye. Right, Hillary. That happened just like the other crazy lawsuits that you say were conspiracies against you because of the Russian hacking. No, Donna Brazil, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, Ellison, Hodeshira, Blumenthal,
Sydney. Oh, you were like
Sydney?
always like.
I always got to make sure I got it right, so I always hesitate. And the rest of her gang, they're all guilty 100%. Perkins Coie, Mark Elias, Fusion GPS, Glenn Simpson, all of them. They're all guilty. And what does she do? That's what a Clinton does. You throw a counter lawsuit as a disinformation piece of propaganda out, and then you ignore it, and then you let the deep state, the shadow government, slow walk it into oblivion, just like your investigations into your Clinton foundations, the most crooked foundations in the world's history that they can't seem to find any evidence against you on.
So then she will be famous. She'll be the first woman to ever run the most corrupt foundation, racketeering organization. Her daddy would be very proud of her.
That is true. Her Chicago mob boss dad, who was number 2 in the and that's the reason she became what she became, because she was raised by a mob boss. She likes to. It's unbelievable the story she tells about her dad and her mom.
Okay, well let's get to the last tweet so that you can kind of close it up today. Seems like the Department of Justice and FBI had a program to keep Donald Trump from becoming president. And this is a quote coming from Daryl Issa at Fox and Friends. If this had happened to the other side, everybody involved would be in jail. This is a media cover-up of the biggest story of our time.
Now, let's reverse this. The mainstream media is saying, if Obama would have said what Trump said when he was in that press conference with Vladimir Putin, Obama would have been impeached. No. Obama gave Putin $500 million, $500 million to build a new uranium plant when he was over there. He built him a tech city. He gave him all the new tech that he has. No. You see, these are the lies that are told. It's so unbelievable the way that it's just twisted up and opposite. What really happens? It seems like the Department of Justice had a program. Oh, let's stop right there. Seems like? There's no seeming like. We have so much evidence. It's disturbing. And they had a program? No. There has already been an IG investigation of politicization between the DOJ and the FBI, and basically, if you listen to what was brought forward, though he didn't indict anybody, they were 1,000% guilty of that. Just looking at the struck page messages besides Agent 1 and 5 and everything else besides Comey's exoneration of Hillary. Because remember, the midterm exam, which Comey was in charge of, who was in charge of that? Andrew McCabe, whose wife had just been given $700,000 to run and was supported by now a guy who's out there, Terry McAuliffe is out there saying crazy things. He's as crooked as he can be. He staged Charlottesville, folks. His wife is crooked. He is on Hillary Clinton's foundation. He was, I believe, one of the founding members of the board of the Clinton Foundation. Okay? You can't get any more corrupt than that. And then what does he do? He comes out and says that, Trump is corrupt. No. The more the corrupt they are, the more they have to come out and sing their alibi. So let's remember, there was no investigation of Hillary for the emails. Don't forget this. She was never once named. She was never interviewed. She was never a target. She was never accused. And there was, in fact, no investigation. There was a matter. It was downgraded with the word matter by Loretta Lynch, who met with Bill Clinton on the tarmac to make sure that it was downgraded to the word matter, and that Loretta Lynch would go after the New York Police Department to make sure that Huma Abedin's computer didn't come to light. which again, Peter Strzok and Andrew McCabe hid, and they weren't even going to look at it till months after it came into their possession, and though it was one of the largest espionage cases in U.S. history. So Loretta Lynch was right there from the beginning. They were all on Comey's side. John Brennan, Comey, Clapper, Lynch, John Kerry, they were all basically running Hillary's election. It was a weaponized Obama administration that Hillary had stepped down from the State Department, but she was still in control of the State Department. Victoria Nuland, and her assistant, Jonathan Weiner, were the people who were her ombudsman once she got out of the State Department. It never stopped for one single second. So, what are we dealing with here? It wasn't a program. It was an attack, a coup d'etat. It was a counterintelligence operation. It was anything besides a program.
People sometimes, I see it, they call it a soft coup d'etat, I guess to make it seem less treasonous. Folks, there's no such thing as a soft coup d'etat. These people were running a coup d'etat to overthrow the United States government. That's called treason. There are all other kinds of crimes associated with it. They need to be arrested. They need to be put in the FEMA camps waiting for their tribunals.
A soft coup usually implies nobody died, but people died. People have died over these issues.
They were going to take away my freedom.
Also, there have been 10 assassination attempts on Trump.
They were going to just throw out the Constitution of the United States and run their own fascist program. They're all a bunch of Nazis up there. You got Herr SS Mueller running the whole thing with his army of SES people out there doing all of the obstructing to keep the good civil servants from doing the jobs that Trump has told them to do.
You have 4 members of Herr Mueller's SS, Herr Mueller's Special Counsel investigation, who basically in their text messages are not only stating that they're going to kill Trump, but they're telling other people to kill Trump. Now let's have Loretta Lynch, who said people will have to get out in the streets and die over this. Remember, during the election,
she said that.
You have Al Sharpton saying people have to die. There have to be riots in the streets to stop Trump. You have Loretta Lynch saying people are going to have to die over this. You have Obama later saying people need to get out, and if necessary, they may have to put the blood on the line.
Well, I hope George Soros is paying more than minimum wage for people to put their lives on the line like that, or even going to jail for 10 years because they've got masks over their faces.
To threaten the president is a felony. It doesn't matter whether you carried it out or whether you even had any substantive actions to carry it out. To threaten the president's life is a felony. Okay, how many have we had of those? Dozens of Hollywood people, dozens of politicians, and thousands of other people. And now we have literally Antifa going out basically saying, like Madonna said, I've oftentimes considered blowing up the White House.
She needs to go away.
We need all of them to go to jail.
Yes.
Sorry. We cannot allow lawlessness to continue just because Obama did and the Bushes did and the Clintons did. We cannot allow lawlessness to go out of D.C. Washington, D.C. is filled with lawlessness. We cannot allow it to spread any further into any other places because it is really a plague. It is a contaminant that is literally can wipe out all of American freedoms. And so we have to corral this swamp. Don't drain it too fast because the toxins will pour out onto the street and it'll kill everybody. We have to, load by load, contender by contender, drain the swamp without knocking down the levee. Because if we do knock down that levee, we're just going to poison everybody around there. So it's happening. It's not happening as fast as some of us would like, but it is happening.